This book is what I put together. And it contains a really concise view of what I've learned over the years about fear. I've put all my art in there as well because I'm a big believer of making fear visible. One phrase that really kind of rings out to me now is that and I'm sure you've heard it before, but pain is inherent, suffering is optional. It feels initially like a weakness to be vulnerable, but you start to realize that vulnerability is a superpower. And there's 6 steps. So the first one was stop, second was name it, third was listen to your fear, 4 was realize if you keep listening and acting upon that, you're never going to move forward. 5 was connect with what you love, and 6 is making fear visible. And that is actually what my purpose is, right? When you can see something and you name it and you can look at it, you can talk to it, it really draws the power out of it, and you take back the power, you take back the power.
Yes, guys, welcome to another episode of LiT Inspiration Takeover podcast. Today, I've got a very special guest who has joined us into the podcast straight from a detox.
Yeah. It's come out literally.
So, I know, right? So the man is here. I really appreciate it. He is an author. He is an artist, a coach, podcaster, and so many more other things. I'm hoping you can kind of give us in your own intro. His name is Ahmed. Ahmed, welcome to the LiT podcast.
Thanks, man. I'm so happy to be here.
Brilliant, brother.
Yeah.
So before we jump into it, I know we're having, the way it started out, guys, is we're having a preliminary conversation just to gather how we'll navigate this conversation. And that conversation is the podcast. So I was just like, you know what? Forget the preliminary conversation, bro. Like, there's just so many gems that you're giving. And I was like, you know what? Let's just jump straight into it. Have a conversation. Mainly what we're talking about today is fear. Right, which is a big theme of the book that you've got and the art that you do. And I knew like there's so many avenues, jump off points for me that I can really jump into to describe about that, so many anecdotal stories and that sort of thing. So I'm quite excited to jump into this conversation. But yeah, before we do that, perhaps if you can give us a brief introduction of yourself, what you do and that sort of thing. And then we'll get right started.
Cool, man. Well, thanks so much again for having me. And
welcome, bro.
Yeah, for me, like you said, I've done podcasting before. I'm a coach. I've coached over hundreds of people across the world in different facets of life.
Brilliant.
And today, what I love to focus on is using film and media to help young men overcome fear.
Brilliant.
And so this book is what I put together. And it contains a really concise view of what I've learned over the years about fear. And I've put all my art in there as well because I'm a big believer of making fear visible.
Okay. Yeah. Because I think most of us, we tend to hide it, don't we? Or you'd rather pretend it doesn't exist. But that small voice, I think, as I was reading through your book that you speak of, it's something that I carry every day, right? It's only when you acknowledge that it's there that you begin to hear it. It's in everything. It's when I'm driving, when I'm navigating certain conversations, when I'm wanting to encourage myself, like to pump myself up. So it's like, it's a very important aspect of life. And I'm quite interested to learn more. The fact that you named it, that is where the concept of shook man comes from, isn't it?
That's correct. So for me, what happened for me was, over the years, so I did a lot of like studying self-development and different things in life, and because I had a lot of fear and anxiety, and like you said, we were having a preamble chat, and I was telling you that shook man was something that my friends and I would use when we were out in the clubs and we were trying to talk to women. And we see a woman we want to approach, and then that little voice starts talking, and we'd be like, "Oh, you better not do it." We'd be like, "Oh, shook man's talking to me." But over time, what I realized as well, what I learned through my time and like becoming more self-aware was that Shookman actually has a history in biology, in us and in psychologically.
Yes.
And to put it very simply though, it's like all these decisions that we made when we were young, bundled up, right? And all these thoughts and feelings are bundled up. We don't remember the specific decision.
Absolutely.
But we react to them. It's almost like our body stores them as emotions. And then when another scenario pops up that's similar to something we've had before, like maybe approaching a stranger,
a woman,
a woman or anyone, right? It's like you just start to think, of all the other times that you've approached someone, and how bad it's gone for you.
Absolutely.
And so Shookman's like, danger signs, don't do this. And then, if you act from that space though, then you're just going on reaction.
To prevent yourself. I remember I heard something that Will Smith, I think he said, and he talks about a similar concept where he says, feel fear and do it anyway. Right? Do you get what I mean? Because as you've said, because it's a protection mechanism, fear is something that's going to run throughout your life, throughout your day, but it's what do you do with it? Even if you feel fear, right, it shouldn't prevent you from doing certain things, or else you're just going to be in a situation where you never get anything done and that sort of thing. And I was saying it's so interesting, the fact that you actually put a name to it. Do you get what I mean? Some people call it the small voice, some people call it different things, but the fact that you called it, Shookman, I was like, I was quite captivated because as I was thinking about it, I was like, do you know what? This is something that runs as a general trend in my life. In everything that I do, fear has been a core part of it.
Oh, really?
Like, for example, I'm a family man, right? 2 children now, got a wife. For the longest time, I had fear being in a long committed relationship. So the relationships that I had before I got married, basically, were just kind of casual. I had a fear of commitment. Basically, I didn't want to get committed. And I don't know where that came from. Perhaps I felt like it would tie me down. Perhaps I felt like it would deprive me from other things. But for the longest time, commitment was a no-no, right? So it took tragedy to happen, in my life. I lost my mother 2011. After that, I went through a life of being a bachelor for almost 10 years, living that life and things like that, figuring things out. And then I discovered, like, do you know what? I actually want a family. I actually want a partner. And it took a journey of about 2 years of self-reflection and then just really deciding, honing on what it is I wanted, that it helped me override those fears and that sort of thing, because I was like, I was so focused on the thing that I wanted that it didn't matter what fear I felt, because I was like, the end goal, the result was more important, and it was bigger for me than this thing where it's like, I'm afraid of, oh my God, am I going to be a good dad? Am I going to be a good husband? I've never really been in a functional long-term relationship. How am I going to handle a marriage? So I went from like 0 to 100 from a guy that had never been in a stable relationship to marriage, and now I've been 4 years.
Wow, congratulations, bro. That's really that's amazing. Honestly, that's amazing.
Just adding on to what you were saying. So that's like some of the parts.
That's, I mean, so a couple of things that you said there, which I think are really important, is like, so many people in life today are stuck.
Yes.
Like you say, you were in like almost like a holding pattern.
Cycle.
Like you were, a cycle or a holding pattern. You were being a bachelor. And then it took, a very drastic change in your life and some serious reflection for you to be able to change that. And for a lot of people, though, if that never occurs, they could live 20 years,
absolutely,
30 years,
absolutely,
40, 50 years old, absolutely, still wondering like,
what is going on?
And time's gone.
Absolutely.
Have
you heard of like 10-year engagements?
No, what's that?
People just being engaged for 10 years. Oh, no. It's not a book, bro. It's like, I've heard stories of people being engaged for 10 years, right? Even past 5 years of engagement. What is that? Right? Because there's something there that is perhaps speaking to that person, that preventing until they dive deep into it.
Serious commitment.
They won't know. Do you get what I mean?
So, I understand. And the thing is, it's like, if you can spend that much of your life waiting, holding, like, that's not wasted time, because every experience is an experience, right?
Absolutely.
But in general, that's a lot of time.
That's
It's
true.
a lot of time gone, right? And we're not just talking about relationships here, right? It could be work, it can be travel, it can be many, many things, right?
Yeah.
You created this podcast.
Absolutely.
People be putting this off for a long time as well, you know, waiting for that right moment, waiting for find their voice, waiting for this, waiting for that, waiting till guests show up, whatever.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what
funny
I mean?
that you said that. Yeah, good. Yeah.
No, but that's the thing, and it's like that's the thing. It's like when we talk about fear, and this is what got me into making this.
Brilliant.
Is because you know I looked at many different things. You know, people talk about NLP, people talk about this coaching thingy, Anthony Robbins. I've done a lot of different things, and I'm not saying that they don't work, right? I'm not saying that, but it didn't work for me. Okay. Right. And I know I've got friends who do very well with Tony Robbins, right? I've got friends who do very well with NLP, right? So, but I went down my own path, and what I found is, and it's very similar to what something you just said there when you were talking about before you got married and then what happened is, you know, you hooked into something that you desired. And that's what I found to be the most powerful. Yeah. When you know all of a sudden, when it clicks for you that this is something that I want, whatever that thing is, and you're just dogged on it, then fear
it overrides everything else.
Yeah, then fear is like, well, what's fear?
Yeah.
And for me now, and I know this is a really important point to all listeners, right? Time is one of those factors.
Absolutely.
Because once you hit like 30, 40, 50, you're not getting any younger.
Nope.
So if you're like
time's
resisting, if you're resisting change, oh, you want to start that podcast, or you want to get married, or you want to travel. Yeah. Time's going to go. You'll be 60 before you know it.
And guess what happens, just to add to the point that you've made, which is so pertinent, is I say change is a constant.
Yeah.
Even if you and I were sat here for the next 5 years, there's still change that is going to come. We're not just going. So I say it's either you find change or change finds you.
Yeah.
So just because you're putting that thing off for however long, and as you get older, there'll be things around you that are changing. So the question that I think people have to ask themselves is, do you want change that controls you, or do you want change that you control? That's the only difference. But if you think about it to say that change is going to come anyway, whether you take the step or you don't, that change will find you. So for example, as you were saying, you might find yourself in a situation where you're now like regretting, and you're thinking about, I could have had this, and
we know
why right? Because people have moved on, maybe people are having families, or people are having children, or as you're getting older, you're thinking, I could have done this. You can't get that time back. You can't get the time back of being a young parent, or sometimes you get to a point to where you might even think to yourself, maybe it doesn't even make sense for me to become a parent now because the time is gone. But go ahead.
No, totally. And that's and time is one thing, right? Absolutely. And time is very important. And then it's also energy.
Absolutely.
That changes over time. And when you're young, it doesn't seem, because you think you live forever.
You're chilling, especially if you're young and good looking. Oh, fam, you think you are going to be chilling forever.
Yeah. But it's not, you know. And like you just said there, whether it's children or podcasting or a particular work, or energy matters.
Absolutely.
And you know, things do change as you get older. So for me, a big factor is like figuring out and trying to help people getting beyond the point of being stuck.
Yes.
And moving forward with life, and questioning why they're stuck.
Absolutely.
Like, why are they in that? How did you put it? Cycle. Yeah. It's like even in the book I mentioned the cycle of stuckness.
Yes.
Because it keeps us stuck.
Yes.
You know, one way or the other. Either you're running away from it or you're fighting it, but you're not moving forward because you just end up in the same
same cycle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I really would like to dive deep into Shookman.
Yeah.
As you were talking about, 2016 is when you really began to harness on it. But before we do that, I'd like to dive deep a little bit into your background.
Sure.
You know, what do you remember from early childhood as it relates to fear? Actually, I think that would be more relevant. Are there some experiences that you might have had, you know, as a child that perhaps you can refer to growing up as a reference point to fear and that sort of thing?
For sure. Yeah. You know, one memory that comes to me is one, and it does relate to, I think it definitely relates to women, right? And it's one where it may not seem connected at first, but I'll explain. So I was at the seaside with my parents and my older sister, and we were playing in the ocean, and there was like a wooden a wooden raft of sorts, and it was attached, something just floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was only like 5 years old or something like that. And I climbed on it. The tide came in, I hadn't realized. So now when it came to stepping off the thing, all of a sudden I got scared because I was like,
you're
I was
just
like,
a
can't
kid.
swim. Yeah, I can't swim. And the whole time, so me and my older sister have been playing with someone we met at the beach. There was another girl. I don't know. I can't remember who she is. We're not connected to her. But at the time, though, I was all like in my coolness, you know, as a kid, boisterous.
Yes.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm scared.
Yes.
I'm just absolutely scared.
Really?
I may have even been crying, like, you know, because I'm just like, and my older sister and that girl had to rescue me, like arm in arm, and I paddled my legs and they brought me back to shore when my parents looked very upset, right? I didn't think too much of that, right, back then, but I realized recently, like, what happened in that moment is I defined myself a certain way because I was like, I'm obviously not a strong man.
Really?
I'm just a boy. I'm just I'm just like a weak boy.
Yeah.
And that stayed with me. It's only recently that I twigged, like,
when you revisited that memory.
I revisit that memory, and like I've done various self-development things, and I've come across these different memories, sometimes multiple times in different things. I've come across the same memory but looked at different, it's like an onion.
Yes.
And you start to realize,
you start to look at it from different points of view and different perspectives.
And it really, what that did is, I was saying to you as well before about like that story, that character that we are, that we hold, that shaped my character in a particular way, a belief structure that was unique to me, that I felt like, I am this way.
Absolutely.
And I carried that until, you know, I'm 38 now, right? And like bits of that are still with me.
Oh, wow.
But now that I'm like cognizant of it, it's different. I don't react in the same way.
Yeah.
You know, I'm able
because
to.
you know, it's not you. You know, it doesn't own you.
Yeah.
Way. Do you get what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Like for me now, and talking about going back to Shookman for a second, is that I appreciate that Shookman is an aspect. It's not all of me. You know what I mean? Like we all have that little voice in our minds, right? Yeah. But it's not all of us. Yeah. It's like you were talking about getting married, you know? Yeah, you may have been scared of commitment, but you also had a desire to move forward, to create something, to have a family,
grow, to build.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're not just one. You're both. And the ability to actually see it first, to be able to see the fear. That's why I gave it a name. Because otherwise, you just think it, because it just speaks in your voice.
Yeah, the name, exactly. Say name it so you can deal with it. And you know where that takes me back, bro? It's like accountability, right? Because if you name it, you know it exists, you know it's there. It's more accountable because you know it's there. Whereas, as I said, I think for myself personally, I used to mask. I just pretend as like, fam, you've never really been in a stable relationship. I didn't want to revisit it. You know, relationship haven't worked out, but it's always the other person's fault. It's like, how is it? You're the common denominator, right? And then it's like, you know, you seem to be in these dysfunctional relationships and you are drawn to them. So it's not until you ask yourself, I had to ask myself some really tough personal questions I didn't want to face, right? To be like, why is it? Why? You know, I just sat one day and said, why is it you've never, I'm talking to myself, by the way, right? Why is it you've never been in a stable relationship, right? What is it? Why is it you seem to find these situations that are, what draws them in? What's the, you know, so when you start to self-reflect and to go for it and to face it, to be like, okay, perhaps this is the reason and things like that. And okay, let's deal with it because I know it's a thing and I'm taking responsibility for it and I'll be accountable for it. Let me now pursue a situation that will be more functional. What is it I want? What is it I don't want? What am I trying to build? What is it going to take in terms of sacrifices? Because I do feel there are points where you have to sacrifice something for you to be able to get there. Until I ask myself those questions, that's when I found the point of moving on to be like, okay, these are the things that I want. I'm not scared to say that I won't be able to achieve it. I'm just going to go for it. And I take accountability and responsibility that I was part of the problem in previously dysfunctional relationships, and trying to avoid it doesn't help me in any way, because when I look at those situations, I was a common denominator.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's, I'd also call that responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, that, and responsibility is, for me today, as I understand it, that's like a superpower.
Absolutely.
Because until you take responsibility, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do with a problem? If, like you said, if you keep blaming it on other people, there's nothing you can do.
Absolutely.
You can blame it on the weather, you can blame it on the government, you can blame it on the women or your partners, whatever.
It's always somebody's fault until you actually look close to home. I said even the scenarios that don't seem like it's your fault. If you really look deep into it, you'll find that you might have had a part to play. And then when you take accountability for that, it actually helps you to grow and to move on. Is the times when you don't take accountability, you sit with it and then you can't move.
The interesting thing as well about like responsibility is the word itself, when you think about it, is response ability.
Your ability
so
to respond.
It's actually your ability in the moment to
Yes.
respond to things and rather than react to things.
Absolutely.
You see that? And
Yes.
and so when you're able to do that, you're playing a whole different game, because you're responding, you're taking response, and you're being accountable. You're holding yourself to a level of integrity. You know, you're going, I can do something.
Yes.
Rather than blaming it, but which is a lot of where like the shook man voice, keep you happy. It's like, oh well, that person didn't want to talk to me, or
exactly,
this was too difficult situation, or I'm too nervous, or then fine, you just and for me, when it came to relationships, thinking back to what you said, I came up with something one day. I realized that there were like 3 factors that were keeping me single for the rest of my life. Right. And it was that, again, it's like conditioning, right? And the 3 factors, this is not in the book, this is like an advanced.
That's for the next one, guys.
But the first one was, I realized, I called it the 3 prongs, right? And the first prong I realized was I was always judging someone's level of attractiveness. Right? Because when we talk about commitment issues, there's always a reason why, something's not quite, so that was the first one. And it was like, this one, when we first met, it was fine. But now all of a sudden it creeps in. The little voice is like, but surely you could find someone who's more attractive. Better. Not even attractive, better in some way. Job, academic, whatever, right? The second one was compatibility. Because it would be like, we'd have an argument. Every relationship has arguments, but in my immature state of being around relationships at the time, it was like, we're having an argument. We're not compatible. That's not going to work. Which is, again, it's ridiculous, like looking back, right? But the thing that really twigged me to the whole process of this was the third one. The third one was, and I came from a Muslim background, and I rarely dated Muslim girls, and the question would always arise eventually in a relationship is, or rather a comment would arise, she's not Muslim enough. Wow. And that's what made me realize that, hang on a second, if I keep following these 3 things, I'm going to be single.
Never going to find
You're never going to satisfy any of those. Like, it's just because there's always something else going on. And once I was able to do that, like you said, I was able to become accountable for, am I going to just keep listening to this pattern behavior that's not getting me anywhere? It's keeping me stuck. Or am I going to move beyond?
Absolutely. Do you get what I mean? And I call it the grass is always greener syndrome. Where it doesn't matter how good a situation you're in, the grass always seems greener, right? But the thing that you don't understand, no wonder sometimes it's like, and this is something that I've said, people that are in other relationships seem more appealing, right? Do you know why? Because that grass is being watered by someone else. It seems like an easier thing, where it's like, you see that person, they just seem to have everything, even though there was somebody else, right? And you think you want to go to that situation, but then when you do, it's like, will you have the responsibility? Are you going to water that grass? Are you going to be able to? It's literally like a garden, right? Will you take care of it the way it needs to be taken care of, in a way that it will be blossoming? Oftentimes the answer is no, and that's another thing that I just had to agree with in my own mind, to say like, fam, the grass is always going to seem greener. And if that's the case, where you're always thinking like, you know what, I have other options and something else, then you will always be seeking, but it's kind of like a hamster wheel. So you will always be going round and round, but you will never actually find what you're seeking. Speaking of relationships, it's like, what a relationship is like how you relate to the other person. So it's literally a discovery of relating to each other. And what is called a ship, right? A ship takes on journeys and things like that. So it's a relating ship. You're on that ship together, trying to figure out how you're going to navigate it. So the thing that you said earlier, to say when you have an argument, is, oh my God, this is not the perfect person, because they say this. It's like, what is going on? Why did you say that to me? But what you're not understanding, it's not the good times, it's actually how you navigate through the hard times, because the hard times are a part of life. Those are things that are standard that you're going to have, especially when you're understanding that when you get with a whole nother human being, they're their own person. They've got their own upbringing and their own
Yeah.
conditioning and things, and you're your own person too.
Yeah.
So imagine two grown adults deciding to come together with various patterns, various
Yeah.
kinds of things where they come from. Of course, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
For
So the minute you accept that and you find the person that you're willing to grow with, I think that's what a relationship is.
Yeah,
Whereas I
yeah.
feel like some people sometimes they think that an ideal relationship is finding something that's perfect and there are no arguments and there's no, excuse me, sorry,
Yeah.
there won't be any troubles, which in my opinion is not realistic.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, I believe the same thing. It's like everyone, take it a bit further. Everyone is a separate universe.
Absolutely.
We're a complete, like, it's amazing that we're even able to converse and
Right.
everything, like it's
Yeah.
actually a miracle because we
Yeah.
are from complete different backgrounds.
Different backgrounds, yeah.
And then it's just society that kind of glues everyone together, right? In a
Yes.
particular way.
Yeah.
For sure. Another thing to go back to what you were saying about comparisons and the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like to think, I came to realize and appreciate is like everyone's got problems.
Yes.
Everyone's got, especially the ones that look perfect. We
Of
just
course.
can't see it.
We
you know?
don't show them because
Yeah.
it's the era of social media. Everyone
yeah.
only shows you their best versions of themselves.
Yeah,
Only
so-
show you the good pictures.
So one thing that I often say to myself is if I catch myself in a comparison mode, like if I'm here and I'm looking at you, I'm looking at this sweet podcast setup and thinking, I want this life. What I say to
don't want this life.
what I say to myself is like, am I willing to accept the whole life?
Exactly.
Because if you want that one piece, are you willing to accept all the problems? And most of the times, no.
Yeah.
Because actually, most of us would rather stick with our own problems because we're
Absolutely.
accustomed to them. We know them well.
Yeah.
I'll stick to that. You do you. I'll do me.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's so perfectly put, because that's another thing. Yeah, the grass seems greener from one side, but when you look at the amount of work that has to go in there, you're thinking to yourself, do I even want that though? Do I even want to do it? Which is why I was saying, like, when I went on the self-discovery journey, it was asking myself some really hard, some really uncomfortable questions, like, what is it you really want? What don't you want? Also, right? Because you have to know that as well, so that you don't end up, wasting other people's time, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But coming back to yourself then, art. I notice you're an artist. When did you first get interested in art? If you could describe that for us.
Yeah,
the
so
journey.
so one of those things that I'd have to say was a natural talent of mine since young. When you just have a raw thing but I never appreciated it. I just thought it was doodling. And it's but what I came to appreciate more and more, and it's really during the pandemic. So from 20, because we all had a lot of
Things
time
going on.
Yeah,
Yes,
we had a lot of
absolutely.
time as well, right? We were at home, we were in lockdown, or we just had less going out to do. And I started drawing a lot more on my iPad. And over that period, like, there was some prolific creation in terms of my iPad and drawing and creating. And what I noticed was, and what I started to appreciate in my ability was, I was very good at visually drawing something that was visually communicative, like the whole Shookman concept.
Yes.
There's a lot of different pieces of art that I've created around it, but it's not just because like I said, I also have a coaching background, and I think we mentioned before, a lot of people are coaches.
Yeah.
But in order to engage with people in like I say, today's world of social media and stuff, we have to be visual.
Absolutely.
And especially for younger generations, my
Yes.
heart really goes out to to the young men and wanting to help young men overcome fear. And so to engage them, it's like to be visual, to be in the animation side of things, but to still to communicate
Make
the
it
same
real.
message, right? So for me, that's when I started to appreciate, from 2020 till now, just really appreciating my ability to communicate concepts that I've learned through coaching and self-development, but through art and media and storytelling. That's so for me now, that's where my heart is and my passion is. And it's also an example of living the ideals that I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
I've come from a lot of background of fear of judgment from others, fear of putting myself out there. Putting this out there means that people know how I think and feel.
Absolutely.
This concept means that people read this and be like, hang on, so you think there's like a Shookman in your head? I'm like, well, I don't think there's like I don't think there's like an actual being
around in your head.
but I believe in the concept.
Absolutely.
And I believe in the power of our imagination to be able to use that.
No, absolutely. I was thinking about it, like, it's quite interesting that you came up with this even way before the pandemic came along. So obviously I would like to find out a little bit in terms of responses, maybe feedback that you might have gotten from people in the pandemic. But before we even do that, perhaps you can talk us through your inspiration, in bringing this book to life. And it's very interesting the fact that you used your talent, which is your art, which I feel like obviously art, for you to be an artist, that's a God-given gift, to tackle this issue, which I think is a very, very important issue right now. Especially it sounds like you've got a heart for young men. And I think the world we live in right now, a lot of young men need all the help that they can get, because as we've stated earlier on, fear is a deterrent. And I was thinking earlier as well, actually, fear is a robber. It robs people of a lot of things, because most times it's in their head. And you find that once you overcome that fear, there are a lot of things that you actually end up achieving that you didn't think you'd achieve. For example, we're talking about business. We're talking about in work environments. People will stick to jobs out of fear. People will stick in relationships sometimes out of fear. Sometimes this exit is the best option in order for you to get to what you need. So it's like this book couldn't have been timed any better, right? The way you timed it. So I'm quite interested to hear your inspiration and perhaps how if you could take us on a journey, how you pieced it all together. That's the thing,
All right. Well, so for me, the first thing was like drawing the Shook Man, right? And that first came to me in 2016. I literally had an inspiration, and I sat down. I didn't know what it was I was going to draw, and I wasn't someone that was drawing a lot back then. I just had a Bic biro and a piece of paper, and I drew out the first ever Shook Man drawing, which is in the book. And from there, I really started to play with the concept of it, talking about it more, developing the ideas behind it, and better understanding the message for myself.
Brilliant.
Because I knew how I was using it, but when you go from an idea to actually communicating it in a way that other people can understand, that's where things can get like overwhelming or too much words and too much terminology. And through my years of like being a life coach and talking to not just men but women too, I've come to appreciate various aspects of the human nature,
absolutely,
which is true for all of us. Whether it's, and one of them is, I know something you love very much, is authenticity, and vulnerability. And what I realize is when we're able to be vulnerable and talk about things openly, it benefits everyone.
Absolutely.
The minute that I'm vulnerable, other people feel that they can be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And so it feels initially like a weakness to be vulnerable, but you start to realize that vulnerability is a superpower.
It is.
Yeah, if you can lead with it, it's like, just not manipulating at all, but just being real. Just being like, this is just how I feel, or this happened to me. I've had various situations where I've realized someone's not talking because they don't know how to say it. They don't want to say something.
Because and I tell you, look down on, or somebody's,
and 100% of the time what works is me going first.
Yes.
Me saying, you know what?
You expressing your own vulnerability.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the interesting thing is, like you just said about, exiting a relationship. Like I just came out of, or I've just come out of a separation. And it was a choice that I took for my best interests.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it was something that I felt like if I was to stay in a relationship, I'll be causing myself fear and frustration.
There you go.
Just more of it. Right.
Yeah.
And it was a hard decision, but I took it because I knew it was better for me. And that actually allowed me to really, live through the belief structures that I've created and put into this book, like the ideas a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine if you didn't, what would have happened is that you'd have been stuck in that cycle, right? The cycle of just reliving the same thing over and over again. And it's only when you let go that you can begin the healing, that you can begin the growth. But once again, as we stated, it's that fear of having to start over that keeps people stuck. And what happens is that when you're stuck, there's a lot of damage being done. And what sometimes people don't get is that the damage is being done to you and it's being done to the other person. I've even heard people say before where it's like, I don't want to be with you, but I just don't want you to be with anyone else. So they'll be there wasting somebody's time, but what they don't realize is they're also wasting their own time, because that time that you're spending wasting the other person's time, you can be using that to figure out what you actually really want. Do you get what I mean? But to ask you this question, do you feel like people ask themselves these honest questions when it comes to dealing with fear? What's been your experience of people sort of challenging themselves and actually admitting to be like, you know what, I do have this thing that prevents me from certain things, and this is what's holding me
Yeah,
back.
I would definitely say the number one challenge would be actually recognizing that that's a problem. You know?
Okay.
And then being able to express it and be able to talk about it, because for most people, and especially men, you know, I really mean this, a lot of men really struggle to share how they're feeling, you know, let alone cry, you know, if it's sad, you know what I mean, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But even just to say that they're scared, because there's a lot of pride, and that goes into the character of what we're supposed to be as men. And you know, I said to you at the start, you're asking me, you know, how to introduce myself, and one of the words I threw in was, you know, I'm a human being, and that's what I believe, though. But we are human beings, and human beings, all of us, we all experience a range of emotions. Like that's normal. That's a normal part of life. But when we don't allow ourselves to even be vulnerable with ourselves about how we really feel, then we get stuck.
And you're doing yourself a disservice, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Like a lot of coaching or life coaching is really about facilitating someone to get to that point of awareness, to appreciate that for themselves. You know, it's not about telling them, it's for them to appreciate that for themselves, so then they can move forward and be like, like you were saying, if because loads of people, I've already got 2 or 3 in my mind. When you talk about someone who's in a relationship that's possibly not working for them, or not, you know, not good for them,
they won't
but
leave.
they're not leaving, and it's comfort, and it's fear, and it's feeling like, you know, how will I survive after this, or what will life look like?
Do I even want to find something? Nah, I'll just stay here and I'll keep on being toxic. And sometimes, if we're being honest, you know you're being toxic. Yeah.
Well,
you know,
you always know, right?
Yeah.
And the reason you
know,
know,
you get away with it.
Yeah, you always know. I mean, the toxic, I mean, I don't know how you define toxic, but let's just say toxic and sad or depressed and all of that, right? Your energy's down.
Yes.
That's how you know.
Yeah.
If you're not happy,
and
sometimes people just go, oh, that's just life. It's not.
It's you being irresponsible.
Yeah, it's not just life. I think, you know, at least, because sometimes, like, they're not even having that conversation with their partner. They're not even having that conversation with their partner. They're not even saying to their partner, like, hey, something's not right. You know, even being able to say, hey, something is not right. Can we look at this? Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
So I think that's a key factor. Is that first, and so hence why, you know, for me, and using art, making fear visible is a key thing for me. Is to make fear visible, because so much of fear is hidden.
A lot.
Yeah. Where do we see it? How do we talk about it? Especially as men, but everyone, not just men, everyone, right? We don't talk about it. Not in the workplace, you know, rarely at home. It's like we keep it bottled up, and it leaks out in different ways. You know, stress, anxiety,
aggression.
Yeah, you know, taking pills or drinking or drugs a lot, you know, just to contain yourself. And we've seen a lot of that in the last couple of years because of the pandemic, right? Like we've seen fear, like in that respect.
Proper.
Yeah.
And just where the world is going, things changing drastically, people just not having the ability to cope with it. So as you say, they medicate. So, you know, with the alcohol and the drugs, and some people it's in you know, in other areas, that sort of thing.
It's, food, everything.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Overeating is a big one.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, with yourself, perhaps you can use yourself as a reference point, right? So how has Shook Man in your life controlled or affected your quality of life? I know you speak of that as a concept, you know, number one. Perhaps you can talk us some of the scenarios where, you know, that fear voice in your head has affected your life in the past.
Massively. So this whole me being an artist and putting this message out now is what I would say me living my truth, me living in alignment with something that I really believe in deep down and that I'm passionate about, right? That wasn't me 2-3 years ago. That wasn't me 10 years ago, right? Where I was like 10 years ago was my mum passed away in 2012.
I'm sorry to hear that,
I know, and what happened for me then is I stepped into the family business, which we have care homes for people with learning disability.
Oh wow!
Right, and it's a very noble thing to work in, and I've grown up in that, and it's, you know, I've gained from that plenty, and I've loved it, right? But it was never my truth, because I've always had this ambition and passion to do different things, and always visual and creative in that way. But for like 10 years, I felt stuck.
Really?
And that stuckness, bred frustration and resentment and anger and depression. You know, because it's hard to turn up every day, feeling like, you know, I want, and I had when I first went in there, I had the best of intentions, but a business is a business, and a business takes time.
Has to be run as a business.
Yeah, it takes time, and you need to learn it. And I was young, and I had to learn, right? And I have learned since then, right? But my quality of life was that for 10 years. That's where I was at, and I couldn't see a way out.
Yeah.
It was only when I started to learn some of the principles that I put into this book about connecting with what you truly desire.
Yes.
Was I able to find, and this where I'm at now, right? Like I'm literally sat here with you because I'm
having
following my path.
Absolutely. I can see it in your face. You're radiating, you're passionate. And bro, and you're living in your passion. But you're living in your purpose.
Yeah, there you go.
You could tell from a mile away.
There you go. There you go. And that's the thing for me. That's what it's all about. And I believe it doesn't have to, when I say purpose, it doesn't have to be any grand thing, but just that you're living in alignment with something you desire. It doesn't, we're not talking about, throwing everything. I still work for the care home, right? That's my responsibility.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm a provider. I'm a provider, so I make sure everything's running. I have management in place and stuff now, but all of that before, I couldn't do that before.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the self-belief, the passion, the self-belief either that I could be the authority.
Yes.
Because my parents started that business.
Okay.
So I was like a young boy when I first came across it.
Yeah.
I had to really step into,
bro.
Yeah. Yes. So you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, because it's so funny, because I can relate completely to what that's a huge responsibility.
Oh, man.
And then also I think there's an aspect of grieving.
Yeah.
Right? You've lost your mum, because I can relate to you. I lost my mum in 2011, and the way she passed away was a car accident. So very sudden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And she just went like that. So all I'd ever known was my mum. She was responsible for the entire family, right? So the weight of that, the thing that you said, for 10 years as well, I was lost, bro. I know for 10 years you were like, you did not. For me, I was just lost, because all I knew was mum, all I knew was home. So I didn't know how I was going to navigate through life. I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to be. So for the longest time, I was medicated. I was doing certain things, and I was just running through life, just not understanding what I wanted. But it's like that weight of coming to a point of acceptance, saying, I am not my mother. Right? My mother had a heart of gold. She was this angel, and some of the things that she carried, I don't even know how she did it. But then she was her own person, even the way she navigated. It wasn't until I accepted, she said, you know what? I'm my own person. I'm going to navigate through this life as myself, and what are the things that I want? What am I passionate about? So I brought that on just to use it as a reference point to say, I've got a bit of an understanding to see where you were coming from, and it's absolutely fair, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. That was major for me, because exactly what you just said there, your own person. I had to discover me. I had to, because business, life, whatever in general, we need to lead our lives.
You do.
We're here to have our own experiences.
Yes.
We are not our parents, but we are the child of our parents. So like for me, my mum and your mum sound very similar. My mum was the heart of gold. She was same for the
pillar
family.
of the family.
She created that care home business.
Oh, wow.
She was the main driving force. My father was also involved as well, and he was a big part of it. But it was her. She had that passion to drive these things through, and the vision for what she wanted to create. She was a very strong woman. Brilliant. And I loved her very much, right? Yeah, and to follow in her footsteps, it's like, wow. It's like she was a powerhouse. Yeah, she was a powerhouse. But in order to do it, I had to do it my way, and I had to discover what my way was, and I couldn't do that with Shook Man's voice continuously telling me that you can't do this, you can't do that, or you're not
good enough. Are you like your mother?
You're
supposed to be thinking that.
My one was like, you don't have the authority. You're just a kid. Remember from the memory?
Yes. Oh yes.
See that little memory?
Yeah. Exactly.
See how that plays out?
Oh, you're just mess this up. You're gonna sink this to the ground.
You don't have you're not a man. I look at, you look at other men and you just, the suits and the,
all this other stuff.
And then just, you look, wow, that was a beard cut nicely. And you just think, wow, that's a real man, but I'm not, and internally, even though we were talking about like looks and stuff earlier, you may look the part, but internally, so many people, like they look the part, especially if they look the part. Actually, I've come to realize, especially if you look the part, because
they're full
often,
of it.
but often there's a fear behind it, because
absolutely
looking the
that
part,
is why they're really trying to put up a front and and putting up a face, right? I was gonna say even ideas of masculinity are being challenged now. This is why I'm talking about the newer generation. The Gen Zs are just like they're awesome, bro. Like they're so amazing. I've spoken to a couple of young people on this podcast that are like 19, 20, and they are so responsible. I'm not saying it's all of them, but it's just the way the younger crowd think is completely different. When I say the idea of masculinity is being challenged, the conventional idea of masculinity isn't it anymore, right? We can be like, sometimes I'll wear simple clothing. I don't feel like it's being this macho masculine guy and whatever. I have my hair in a bun right now. My wife did it, but I'm like masculine, right? Like I'm a husband.
But you like it though, right?
I like it, yes. I'm a husband and I'm a dad. That doesn't take away from masculinity, but it's kind of like sometimes, for me, babe, I'll speak for myself, the culture I was coming from is like there was a certain idea of masculinity, right? There's certain things that you have to be a man. As a man, you know, you have to take on the responsibility because this has been left to you, right? What a man would do is you're not supposed to complain. You're not supposed to look at what your dreams are. You're just supposed to take over, you know, what mom's left you and make it work. And as a man, you don't complain. As a man, you don't speak about your feelings. You don't speak about how you... Nah, fam, toxic. In my opinion, anyway.
Well, that was, you know, as you were talking, that I would have to say is one of the most harmful things.
Absolutely.
You know, for all humans, right? But especially, I know, like you said, the idea of a man previously was like you know, stiff upper lip.
Upper lip.
Yeah. The British mentality was you don't show emotions.
Nope.
And it's all about saving face, you know. But in reality, you know, crying. It's a release.
It does.
It allows you to move through. You know, we both had, you know, our mothers pass away. Now, if we never cried about that, then that's a problem,
brother,
because that's someone we loved. And it was sad. We hurt. You know, it made us. What's the word? Grief. You know, and if you can't let that out, then where does it go?
To you?
Where does that go? That turns into anger.
It can consume you.
That
can consume. I will tell. I wept for my mother. I'll say wept, not even cried, wept, begged God. Like obviously when everything happened, there was a time when she's still around and we don't know what's going to happen. I'd never really had that kind of, it's just like, Lord, I promise, you know, please, and that kind of thing. And it's expression. It's like, this is a person that you've known all your life and they've built this and they've done all this. So it's like, I can relate, bro. I fully understand where you're coming from, and some of those things is accepting, okay, this situation has happened. And it took me a very long time to actually accept that my mom was gone because of the sadness. And I think it was the fear of, okay, if I accept this, does that mean I then forget about this person? Because I was like fearful, like, fam, I can't forget her. So if I keep the wound open, it means I won't forget. But then all that did is more damage. The minute I accepted it and I realized, you know what, should be happier with me doing something and moving on is now I celebrate her, right? I speak to her through my children. I remember all the advice that she gave me. In fact, now she's even more of a presence than ever before, but I'm still living life and I'm still building, I'm still doing things. And I just realized this is a person that I will never forget.
One of my one phrase that really kind of rings out to me now is that and I'm sure you've heard it before, but pain is inherent, suffering is optional.
Absolutely.
And I really get that, you know, because life is inherently painful. There's, you know, we're going to pass away one day. Your kids are going to feel that one day, you know, and, you know, in general, that's just how it goes. That's life, right? There's no getting away from it. Our ability as human beings, but you know, men also, but everyone really, but like ability to surrender, it's tough. It's tough to surrender because often we don't want to go through that. I imagine like a door. We don't want to walk through that door where, like you're saying, like letting, like actually to weep and to cry, to let that emotion out, to be able to walk through it for various reasons, whether it's guilt or shame or anger or resentment, I would say for a lot of us, it's embarrassment. You know, we don't want to let that out.
Absolutely.
So then, that sticks in. But when you can surrender to what is, like even like with the pandemic, for example, I feel like my ability to quickly adapt to the fact that this is happening, rather than expecting this to just go away, I was able to move with it. As opposed to kind of like just stay indoors stuck for a while, you know, like because like I said, I ran a care home. I didn't have that luxury of just going indoors. Like we had to keep rolling, and
you had to keep doing things. Exactly.
Well, I mean, but my ability to go, all right, this is happening. What's next? What's the next? that meant I was responsible. I was able to respond.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, you spoke about being stuck. As I was describing, I think you described it as well. I feel like a stuckness 10 years. Similar to me, I was stuck in a vicious cycle until it came to a point to where I had to accept it. And I was like, I'll either sink or I'll swim. And sometimes I feel like a lot of people, they are stuck. Sometimes they don't admit it, as you said earlier. So somebody will be stuck and they won't even know that they're stuck. But that's why certain things that they want to happen don't happen. Certain things keep repeating themselves in a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So you describe a circle of stuckness. If you can perhaps just dig into that for us in the way that you describe it in the book.
Yeah, let me grab it from the book.
Yeah.
So the main idea of it is about the way in which our beliefs impact our reality. Okay. So, like we talked about the voice in the mind. And so, for those who, anyone, this book is currently available free to download. Just go to shookman.com. That's SHOOKMAN.com.
Yeah.
And so you can see this diagram I'm talking about, right? So I refer to as shook man's fears, that voice, whatever it's telling you. You talked about relationships. I talked about being stuck in the care home authority. That voice will say different things, what we can and can't do. That then feeds our beliefs. From very young, I already decided that I was a weak person. So that little voice is going to keep feeding this idea that I can't do that.
Yes.
Because what if I mess up? What if that goes wrong again? What if I harm myself this time?
What if I embarrass myself? What if humiliation?
Yeah.
Is it shame?
What if I'm right that I can't take care of myself?
Yes.
That sort of thing, right? So those beliefs, they cause seeking of proof of those beliefs in the world. And one of the examples I give in the book is like, if you really believe that people don't want to talk to you, and you go and start a conversation with someone, in your mind, no matter what they say, you're going to believe that they don't really want to speak
to you. Yeah.
I was just talking to someone recently about this, and she was saying to me how, and she's a grown woman too, and she was saying to me how she met a neighbor or something, and she has it in her head that she can be she believes she's not an annoying person, but she believes that, or rather, she didn't want to be one of those annoying people. So she ejected herself out of that conversation, oh, hey,
I don't want to bother you.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't say anything. No one said anything. She believed it
in her head,
and so she's like, right, okay, cool. 5 minutes, 10 minutes into it, let's go. Right, she's out. So that's you're looking for that proof.
Wow.
Then inevitable validation of the beliefs. So you're validating that. You're like, well, yeah, they didn't want to talk to me. They
see
the way he responded. Yeah, the way he responded. Oh, he said yeah, but I don't know. I don't believe him.
It's probably a no. And then you actually end up talking yourself out of a particular situation.
And that can happen all the time, whether it's like job opportunities, relationships, whatever, even in a relationship, right? Like with your partner, you could be making a request, you want to go do something fun and you express it. Maybe she hasn't woken up fully yet. And so she's like, oh, we'll talk about it later. You're like, I knew she wasn't going to be.
I knew it.
Yeah. And then that reinforces his fears.
Absolutely.
And that's the cycle that goes around the whole thing. And that goes back to, there's like 4 stages. His fears, your beliefs, how you seek proof of the beliefs, and the validations of beliefs.
Brilliant.
So that keeps you stuck.
Yeah.
Because then you just keep on believing that, well, this is true. So I'm validated. No change can happen.
Yep. And that's how you literally walk around the world miserable.
Yeah.
And this is why I always say it's better you experience something yourself, right? You go through a certain situation on your own and then get the result based on what you've experienced. So for example, I told you I do a delivery job, for Amazon and that sort of thing. Sometimes you hear all these stories about Brits, like, oh, Brits are upfront and they're rude and all these other things. And some of them are, fam, some of my experiences couldn't be further from the truth,
right?
Because there's been times, you remember this heat wave that we've had. It's been so hot, and I've been in certain neighborhoods and certain environments where people have been so kind, so generous to me. Be like, oh, would you like an ice cream? How's your day going? I've got into places. Somebody's got a cold water, and sometimes this lady will just give me like a cold drink, and I'm saying, when it's really hot and you're working in a van, that is the sweetest thing anyone can ever do for you, right? It's something that you don't forget because it's a need that's being fulfilled at a moment in time when you need it. Whereas if I listen to people and the things that they say, where it's like, oh, they'll say, oh, this and that about people, and oh, if you go this and these people are like this, that's not been my experience. But imagine if I was coming into that with a preconceived notion of mental, these people are like this, and then I'm like, hey, here's your parcel. Already I've created that energy. What do you think the response is going to be from that person? It's based on the energy that I've created. Whereas if I'm going there with an open mind, you know, whatever, and that energy is reciprocated because these people understand, like, oh, this man is actually doing a job, and they actually appreciate that. To be like, what, you're out here working in the heat, and you're bringing us our parcels. I'm kind of like Father Christmas a little bit, right? And man, I'll say, for the most part, my experience has been very positive when I've been around meeting people in different kinds of places, and the generosity is just something that's like spoken to my heart. I was like, oh wow, you know, this is not what I expected, and this is not what I've heard of people. So imagine if that's what drives me.
My point? And the funny thing is, when we speak about that about other people, well, what is it about them that they're saying it? Well, in my world, in the way that I'm describing it now, is that's their shook man.
Yes.
That's their shook man telling you, like, oh, be careful. This is what happens out
there. When you're there, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. And this is not to say it's 100%. Of course, this is not to say that everyone, you do have, sometimes people have bad days, or sometimes people, you know, that saying that says hurt people. Or sometimes I think you said it earlier, when somebody's just having a bad day, it could be that they're just having a bad day. We all have them.
Don't we do. So, like, for me, it's also about, like, you know, I think that's for me as well. Like, the more you learn about your own shook man, your own things, the things that make you scared, the things that make you tick, the more you can develop compassion for everyone else. Because I truly believe everyone has a heart. Like, we're all human beings. We all have a heart. You know, as you said, some people are hurt, and then that's how they interact with the world. And some people are, what's the word? Some people are bad, or so they've done bad things, right? But often it's because of the way that they've been raised, or something that happened in their life that led them on that path. We all started off as babies.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
All innocent, all loving, you know, just kind.
So we're all
something changed.
This journey,
conditioning.
And most of us actually just want to live our lives.
Absolutely.
Have our families. Get on with our business, and that's it. We don't want to get involved in this and that. We're just happy. But then sometimes you get people wanting to even rope you in. Do you know that thing that says misery loves company? As some people even get annoyed. Why aren't you joining? We are. What do you mean we? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a part of that. I think this is something that I say to Ella as well. I say it even when I come to this podcast. One of the things that I say to myself when I began is keep an open mind and have an inquisitive one. Right? Because if I come in with an open mind, of course within reason, and I'm inquisitive, I will learn so much. I will discover. And then in the points where I'm unsure or I don't know, ask questions, dig a little bit deeper. And then in the points, even if it turns out if I don't agree, go educate yourself a little bit more, or sometimes just let it go. Do you get what I mean? But being open-minded, especially in this field that I'm in, is so important. Even in a conversation that we're having now, it feeds you so much more because people can actually describe, or they can tell you what they're thinking if they understand that where you're coming from is really, you actually genuinely want to understand and you want to learn where they're coming from, as opposed to, it's very easy to come with preconceived notions. Right? I've done my homework. I believe in this thing. So I'll be asking you questions that are like, got you questions and that are narrow based on my view because no, I believe in this. So why? What do you mean? Fear. What are you trying to say? People are afraid. Right? Nah, fam, let the person talk and so I just believe in being open. And in having an open mind. Same. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't claim to have any particular truth. I'm just sharing what's worked really well for me. And I've seen it work well for other people.
Brilliant.
And, you know, like I said, I've coached many, many people. And at the core of it, it's about humanness. That's at the core of all of this.
Absolutely.
You know, we're all, one of the things we all share is emotions.
We do.
And experiences. And we can all relate to that. You know, I can talk about a certain fear. I can, you know, if you've never been skydiving, I could talk about skydiving. You can relate to the fears I experienced going up in a plane with the door off. And you see the land getting further and further away.
See, that's when the fear takes over me right there. Like,
see?
What?
We can all relate to that,
Bungee jumping? Oh, no, I'm not doing that. And then sometimes it's like people will project. Right, it'll be like this thing. They'll say, "Oh, but you won't catch a black person doing that." And then Will Smith was doing it. right? And then people were like, oh, it's a midlife crisis. No, it's just that he was overcoming his fears and he's dealing with it that way, right? But sometimes you'll be convinced to be like, oh, the culture that I come from, we don't do this, right? And you will have that fear, and that fear will consume you. You prevent yourself from actually experiencing certain things.
That's that I would call conditioning. There's many levels of conditioning. Our own personal conditioning, societal conditioning, all sorts of conditioning. But as you move through life, I feel like the more we're able to open, as you said, being open, you can then actually have your own experiences. We're here to have our own individual experiences. That's
absolutely. So the science behind Shook Man. If you can describe that a little bit.
I mean, the science of it, we're talking biologically speaking, right?
Okay.
Because the way I see it is there's two sides to our fear. Well, there's many different facets that we can break further into, but on a very basic level, there's the psychological factors of like the way we were raised and the experiences we had growing up with our parents and whatever we experienced. Like I said about me at the beach and the experiences, those experiences there. There's other experiences I'm sure we've all had. Like I remember getting lost going shopping with my mum. And couldn't find them. And absolutely, again, very young, absolutely freaking out and just thinking, oh my God, I don't know what happens now. The whole time your parents are there looking after you, and now they're not there. You don't know where they are. Just see people walking around, and so that builds into us decisions about who we are, what we can do, what we're capable of, right? The other side of it is the biological factor over like the human evolution. And this goes more into like how man evolved over time. And one of the simplest things is we do have innate fear built into us, which is a positive thing.
Because it protects us.
You got a feline on the wall there, right? And now one of these is coming to, I've seen one of these, right?
Up
close,
in real life.
Went on safari, and it was open top cars, but they've trained all the animals on this safari land. They're from young, they see the cars. You're not allowed to break the silhouette of the car. Because they just see the car. If you break the silhouette by standing up, they will look.
They're coming.
Come
they're
after fast. you. They're fast, bro. It's pertinent to be fearful. And so one of the simple things from evolution is like, we pay attention to fear and more attention to fear than good things.
Absolutely.
Like I would even say to the point now that we live in a world that is predominantly fear-based. And because we're always on the lookout for, like you said, people are watch out, you're delivering, people are not going to be nice. We've got the pandemic, you got to watch out for the invisible virus, and you got to take all these precautions, and wherever you go, there's fears of cities, put your rucksack, you walk through London or any city, often tourists will have their rucksack on their front. Which to me, I'm like, I live in a city. No one's ever tried to take my bag.
Try and take something. And people, I don't even want to jump into politics. Even politics, fear is used a lot. That's how people won certain elections out of fear-based.
It's so easy,
right?
Because we pay attention to that.
Exactly,
it's built into us. If something is dangerous, we're going to pay attention because that means our life is threatened. So the science behind Shook Man is that's innate in us, and that's why when I say like in the next chapter after that is like you are not Shook Man.
There you go. Your thoughts and feelings are not you.
Exactly. Because I've come to realize that all of those things that they from a young age they kept us safe. But
now they no longer serve you.
As you said, right? When you got older and you self-reflected on your fear of commitment and these things, you were like, hang on a second.
Why?
This doesn't serve me anymore. You see, the ability to stop and self-reflect and go, hang on, this doesn't serve me. But how often do you ever look at a decision again? We don't even, when I sat down in this chair, I didn't check the legs. I just saw a chair. I said,
this chair looks good.
This is a chair.
I'm good.
I plopped that. This is a sturdy chair. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
But we don't question. We don't have time to question every single thing we've ever thought of every single time. So our brain just essentially the way I understand it is our brain packages it up as emotions and it feeds it back to us. Like if I fell off a chair once and it broke, if a chair like this once broke on
before,
me,
then every time you come, you're going to be checking.
I'll be like, oh, I'll be like, bro,
is it steady?
Yeah. Have you checked this chair recently?
Yeah, exactly.
You done an MOT on this chair?
Exactly.
That's the science behind it.
Okay.
That's how we basically function scientifically. So when you become aware of this, you can start to disassociate from the fact that this is you. It's not you. It's an automatic system in the same way that your body breathes, digests, your heart beats, All these things without you having to think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, like, it's interesting that you talk about the breathing.
Yeah.
There was a time, I think it was in 2010, I was in college, looking to go to university. And it was such a grand thing, me going to university, because I'd experienced people just telling me I wasn't good enough. I was never going to go to uni. I was even worried to see, like, I didn't know whether I would complete my college to be able to go to, to university. But I'd never been so focused at that time on what I was doing in terms of getting the grades and things like that. But something in me was just telling me, something's gonna happen. You're not gonna get there. Then do you know what happened to me? I started to get panic attacks. I'd never got them before because it was fear. And then one of the fears that I had with the panic attacks I was getting is I just used to have this thing where I thought I was going to stop breathing. Yeah, that was the fear, where it's like, I can feel myself breathing, and I was convincing myself in my brain that, oh my God, I'm just going to stop breathing. I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I didn't know where it was coming from, and my heart would start racing. Like proper racing, because I'm like, oh my God, I felt like the world was sinking.
That's that parasympathetic.
I genuinely convinced myself in my head that I'm breathing normal. How is it? I'm just breathing normal. I'm going to stop breathing. Oh my God. And if I stop breathing, I'm going to pass away. And this was in 2010. This is before I even lost my mum, you know? So it was like, I don't know where that was coming from. I'd never had it before, but the significance was the fact that I was about to go to university, and I found this to be a milestone in my life. I found it to be a grand event because I'd been told I wasn't good enough. I was being told I wasn't intelligent enough. The people that didn't believe that I'd be able to do it. So even as I was going to college, very few people knew that I didn't tell a lot of people, because I just wanted to be able to do it, to prove it to myself. The minute I went and I got to uni, the thing just passed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it just went away. Ever since then, I've never had a panic attack again.
Wow.
But I'm wondering, like, in that moment, where did that come from?
So your body was responding.
Yeah. You described false evidence appearing real, right? You wrote something like that about the book. That was literally it. And the thing is, that false evidence felt very real.
Yeah.
Right. There was a point where my heart was racing so fast that the issue now was, if this continues, I could have ended up having a serious thing with my heart. But then the heart was racing fast, because whatever my mind was telling it, my body believed it. And I was feeling hot. I genuinely am feeling like I'm going to stop breathing. At one point I was like, call an ambulance now, because I don't know what's going on with me. Oh my God, something is happening. And it was very real. It was manifesting itself.
That's the thing.
In reality,
the brain, the mind and the body cannot tell the difference between, like
what's real and what's not real.
A lion coming towards you.
Exactly.
Or something that you're just perceiving, because it's like there's something subconsciously perhaps that it's been fed in that there is danger. And now it's like your body's reacting. And I've come to learn recently, actually, on this detox that I just came back from. I was reading a book about the gut and the intelligence of the gut. Actually, this controls a lot of our feeling.
They say, I just get a terrible feeling in my stomach about a certain
the gut
situation.
Feeling, the scared, shitless. These sort of things.
All of these, the same.
Yeah, these are all
absolutely.
So the brain actually takes a lot of that from the gut as well. But essentially, our whole body is wired to be like that. And so even if there isn't something and we tell ourselves, then we can feel it. And until like, the thing is, the amazing thing is that you were able to continue. You know what I mean? Like, you were able to keep moving through that, and eventually it went away.
It did go away. But what I always wondered is, where did that come from? That was such a lie that I somehow believed, right? But I think it was this thing where I was really fearing, like, oh my God, I'm about to go to this thing and this university and it's grand and something is just going to happen that I'm not going to go. I don't know where that fear. Well, I kind of do know where it came from. As I said, it was these instances of people telling you, like, I had one person when I'd completed my college and my grades came, and my grades were great. Again, I didn't even believe that I would do. I did brilliantly, right? So, and then I'm telling them, I was like, oh yeah, I've been going to college and I'll be going to, they laughed at me, like, promise, seriously, you going to uni? That's funny. That's a great joke. They didn't believe it, right? For whatever reason, perhaps I created that impression. So that somehow found a way in my system, and it found a way to to convince me.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many levels to all of this, right? I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or anything like that. But the thing that I can say is that, like, you know, with the concept of shook man, it's like being aware of shook man is like allows people to actually start to create new possibilities in their life, because they can start to appreciate that everyone has fears and that they don't have to hold us back. But the real magic is in getting to know your own personal shook man. Like, I've spent many years diving deep into my own past and history and figuring out, like, you know, like you're saying, people said things to me, I took on conditionings, or I believed things and I made decisions, and then that would have me react in a certain way, right? So, like, you know, you could really dig into that, and you could probably find out what it was that was there. You don't necessarily have to. It doesn't have to every single minutia, but in essence, the more you understand your own personal shook man, what made that character, because you know, when we talked about naming him, the reason why is because then you can understand that as a separate entity, right? I can look at him as the way I'm looking at you and go, okay, so what's up, bro? Like, you know,
what do you want?
What happened?
Why are you here?
And you know, the crazy thing about it is, well, that the face behind this scary face, right, is actually just you when you were like 5.
Absolutely.
You know, between the ages of like 0 to 5, that's when a lot of our identity was formed.
Absolutely.
And so then that gets perpetuated over time, right? But the more you understand that and the situations that you experience, the better you're able to go, that's why I'm feeling that way. And that's not necessarily true. And I don't have to respond that way anymore.
In that way, I mean, speaking of childhood, I remember an experience, I think I even told my wife about this, of rejection, right, when I was young. So it was a wedding we were supposed to go to, and I think there was this person that had been given the responsibility to go with me. When I think about it now, I think they just didn't want the burden of having a child with them. I think at the time I was like 7 or 8 years old, right? So, and for me, I'd always been this very active kid. A 7-year-old, if you tell him to sit still, come on, that's not gonna happen. So my mom had bought me a tracksuit at the time. That's what I was supposed to wear at the wedding and things like that. I asked to be on the lineup, but I wasn't part of the family, so I couldn't even be on the lineup. But my smart self decided to go play, because I think she went to like take a shower while she was taking ages. I decided to go play, and I decided to go play downstairs, where I'm not realizing that I'm mopping the floor with my clothing. So I got dirty, right? So when I came back upstairs, I'm dirty now. So the lady's like, oh, what? Now that you're dirty, you're not coming with me to the wedding.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? I'm sorry. I'll get changed. And then the lady that used to look after me, the babysitter, is like, oh yeah, we can find some new clothing for him to wear for you. She goes, no, I'm not taking him, because I told him to sit still and he didn't listen and he moved. He's gotten himself dirty. So because of that reason, he's not coming with me, right? I could not, and I begged, like, come on, please, let me get changed and take me. And the lady tried to change me and everything else, but this one was not having it. I think she was just not feeling taking me. Sure. I now remember that I cried so much, I cried myself to sleep, right? So when my mum came and she was told about the situation, I actually remember seeing the heartbreak in her eyes. And I was thinking, at that time, for me, I did not understand. When I now contextualize it, it's like, man, maybe this lady just thought, man, taking this kid and whatever, that's long. I don't want to be dealing with a child. But for me, I took that as rejection, right? I felt rejected in that way. It's like, why would you leave me? And my friend's going to be there and everyone's going to be there. I know I messed up, but come on, bro. Forgive me for that. But that lady just would not forgive me. And that's one of my childhood memories that I remember. So I'm like, I wonder how that affected me.
Well, the simple thing you can ask
moving forward, right?
Actually, what comes to my mind, because this is actually an exercise I do on myself, and I've done recently as well, is when you're looking at childhood memories, if you imagine yourself to be that age and you ask yourself, what did you decide? Because that decision,
time.
And it's hard, because as adults we think of these long words and so, but as a kid it's very straightforward. And often it's very simple, like I'm not loved, or I'm not lovable,
or reject why. And this thing of, sometimes you have a thing of appeasement where it's like, where you even shatter your own boundaries in order to try and get people to
validation.
And for the longest time I lived my life that when I realized it didn't serve me, so I got rid of it. I was like, nah, if you cross my boundaries, I'll let you know. If we don't gel in that way, we're just not gonna gel. If you come, you either come with respect or you don't come, right? I will set certain things. I respect your boundaries, you should respect mine. If you can't, then we're just not going to hang. Do you get what I mean? And even that helped me, as I stated, to get in the relationship I'm in, which is my marriage, understanding the things I wanted and understanding the things I didn't want. Because at one point I just thought, yeah, you know, everything's all cool. Yeah, it's all right. I'll just take everything in.
Yeah.
Then what happens is that's not good, because eventually your real self
Yeah.
is going to come out, and then you realize that that doesn't serve you. It's important to have boundaries. It's important to understand the things that you will take or tolerate and the things that you want for the benefit of yourself and the people that.
Yeah, and actually with that as well, I think when you talk about boundaries, one of the things that again I discuss in the book is actually like there are boundaries that are about us respecting ourselves, but then there's also boundaries that we have to question as to why, like if they're fear boundaries, you know, like why we're afraid to look into certain things and or to pursue something that we desire. So that's another area of it as well. When if there's something, this is a bit different though to the boundary you were just referring to. I'm talking about a boundary where it's like there's something that you desire, but it's outside a boundary that you've set for yourself.
Okay.
You're saying that I'm not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Like you're saying it to yourself, and it's like questioning and going, I'm not good enough, or I could never do something like that. And you know, I go back to that thing about we all started as babies.
Of course.
No one was given a book on life, like, and just going, this is the playbook for being successsuccessful. Like, you know,
we learn to crawl, we learn to walk, we learn to talk,
beauty.
we learn to eat. Because I've got my kid is like 4 or 5 months old.
Cute.
And he's learning everything from scratch. And his go-to behavior is cry.
Yeah.
We even think, it was just cry, right?
I know it well.
Yeah. So, but then he's learning everything from scratch, and it's an interesting journey to see.
You can really appreciate it.
Shaped, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing for me now. Given what I know, I really appreciate that when I'm interacting with younger people, is because then I know that things shape their reality. The way in which you communicate with them, the authenticity, the love, the time. You know, they're absorbing it.
Absolutely.
The amazing thing about children, and we were all children once, is like with adults, often we're taking things away. In order to get someone to transform as an adult, we have to remove the conditioning. With children, they're just sponges.
Oh yes.
You don't need to give them a big talk. You just acting a certain way. They see you. They mimic, you know,
absolutely.
That's how they learn, and they learn super fast,
super quickly.
So for you in that moment, going back to that, you know, you dirtied your clothes, and this woman said, "No, you're not coming." You absorbed
that,
boom,
like, rejection.
Yeah, that's it. That's how it is.
Why are you saying no to me? And
there's a lot that goes with it. You know, that's why, like, you know, in even like with therapy and stuff, right? That's why it takes so long to do therapy and these things, because it takes time to unravel that onion.
Absolutely.
You know,
and sometimes people just think, what do you mean? No, but because as you said, it takes digging deep. No wonder it's like these people have medical degrees, isn't it? Like the therapists and stuff. And that's definitely something as well I'd like to look into in the future, like therapy, to uncover some of these things, some unresolved issues and things like that.
Well, it's life, man. That's just part of life.
No, briefly, I wanted you to perhaps dive into, I mean, we'll be coming to a close because it's been an absolutely interesting conversation. Fear versus joy. So you described that. So perhaps briefly, if you can let us in on that.
So after years of developing Shookman, so my name is Ahmad, and the surname's Jooma, and then the initials AJ.
Yes.
And, you know, actually one of the things I love is laughing and sharing a good time. We've had a lot of laughs here.
Absolutely.
It's just free flow, easy, right? And so I realized that joy was important to me. And over time, what I realized is when it comes to fear, and, you know, we touched upon this before as well, is like when you're able to tap into what actually makes your heart sing, what makes you joyful, it's like these two different things, two different sides of you. One that seeks joy, your heart, and then the conditioned beliefs and ideas that give you the fear, and which I call Shookman, right? Your ability to tap into your joy over focusing on your fears means that you can actually move forward. You know, you gave a great example. I don't even have to give one. The great example of, you know, moving from being stuck in a how did you call it?
Vicious cycle.
It was a vicious cycle, bachelorhood.
Oh, bachelorhood. Of course. You
know, being in that bachelorhood and thinking, this is me, I'm good like here, but then eventually going, no,
this is not what I want.
I want to move forward, right? That is often what it takes, right, for you to be able to move through something. And I truly believe in this life, no matter what happens, it's our responsibility to find the joy to move forward, because life, like I said, is inherently painful. But we're here to enjoy the experience. We're here to have new experiences and enjoy the experiences, and not to get stuck.
Absolutely. So what's the solution to shook man?
So the solution, I see you got it in front of you right
Of course
there.
I do.
So, off the top of my head.
Navigating through it.
Yeah.
As we're coming to the end.
Yeah, so let me actually, because I haven't looked at this in a little while myself, but so each of these points, like I kept it really simple in this book. You can see people, those watching, I've kept it really simple to read, right? I've not gone super deep, but I've given
even
you
the illustrations. I love the illustrations because they really bring everything to life. And simplicity in the generation we live in is key.
It's key, man.
Do you get what I mean? Because attention. What do they call it? I've even forgotten the word. Like our attention span. Is shorter.
And it's also, I feel like there's attention span, but there's also engaging content.
Yes,
the ability to grab attention and to engage. Yeah, the first thing, I mean, I kept it super simple here, right? But this is the thing, and it is actually simple when you think of it. The first thing is to actually just stop and become aware. Like we were talking earlier, how do people even become aware that they have a fear? So often in life, we're so busy running from one thing into the next and trying to keep up.
You just don't think about it.
Yeah. It was only like when 2020 hit that we actually, everyone kind of stopped. You know, like
and they had to face their fears.
Yeah, they had to, like, you know, every aspect of their life, because before you could hide in your work, you could hide in this, in the cinema,
you could hide in relationships. And that's what I was saying before you even continue. Like a lot of businesses have been birthed as a pandemic. A lot of career changes have happened. A lot of people just quit their jobs, not just quitting for the sake of quitting, but they decided either to start a business or they decided to move on because they realized they had that time to face themselves. That's how this podcast was born, actually, in the pandemic.
Really?
I was doing a food business before, and I was like, oh, what could I do? And then the podcast was born, obviously on a lot smaller scale. And then post the pandemic, I just grew it to be like, why am I not doing it? Of course I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Amazing.
So,
So stop, right? Stop, reflect, and like, you know, listen to that inner voice. And
absolutely.
And the second thing is name that inner voice.
Yes.
So once you can hear it and you realize, hang on, there is this chatter that's always saying you can't do this, you can't do that. Every single time that I want to do something, it's like, don't do it, don't talk to this person, don't try that, don't travel, you know, don't talk to people, whatever, right? You name it, and as we've said before, like naming it, it makes it more relatable.
Absolutely.
It's like I said, it's almost like speaking to another person. I can then begin to understand what's going on there. And the more you understand your own personal shook man, the more you're able to take back your power.
It's true.
Because life is all about moving forward. You know, time moves one way, and so do we. You know, we've yet to turn back the clocks.
I know, right? I don't even know if I want that to happen. You know?
Definitely not. You know, when I think back to being like even in my 20s and whatever, I was highly insecure.
Right.
So I prefer
and
who
a
I am
whole
today.
lot of things. Exactly.
You're
growing and you're becoming better as a person.
Exactly. That's the beauty. And then listen to the fear. So what is it actually saying to you? Because when you can actually listen to the fear and listen to how it's compelling you to act, you can then start to question it in the same way. And I'll use your example again because it was a good one. You were like, well, bachelorhood, cool and all, but I want to move forward. Like, what are the fears? Question it. What are the hard questions? Not always easy.
Uncomfortable ones as well. People don't like to ask themselves uncomfortable questions.
Absolutely, because you've got to face your own bullshit.
Yes, exactly.
So you got to question yourself, right? And often we do lie to ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we do lie to ourselves.
Comfort. I think you described comfort earlier. People would rather live in the comfort zone because it's like easier. It doesn't take work.
And then the fourth one is realizing that if you continue to listen to that fear, if you continue to listen to the ideas of bachelorhood, nothing's going to change. You'd still be single now, and you probably wouldn't be here.
Absolutely, I wouldn't even be making this podcast.
Exactly. Right. Your life wouldn't be moving forward. After that, you know, connect with actually what it is that you would desire. It's quite funny actually. Using your example was perfect because you connected with your desire.
Exactly.
What you wanted.
Then,
you're the best example. I'm using this example.
Brother. I love that.
Perfect. No coincidences. So connect to that desire and really be with that and be like, this is actually something that I want. Because you don't have to know how you're going to do something. Knowing what you want is already, you're going to be inspired to move towards it. You told me that you didn't know anything about audiovisual before you started this. If anyone could see this, what he's created here, it looks to me like he knows a lot about audiovisual. He's got a lot of audiovisual experience.
I'm saying I'm learning. And
the final, there's 6 steps. So the first one was stop, second one was name it, third was listen to your fear, 4 was realize if you keep listening and acting upon that, you're never going to move forward. 5 was connect with what you love, and 6 is making fear visible. And that is actually what my purpose is, right?
Brilliant.
So my purpose is about making fear visible. So I'm doing that through this book. I'm doing that through making art. I've got t-shirts. I've got loads of designs coming. And I'm also working on creating animations and film.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I really feel like, you know, it's a great time to be sharing this information.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big believer that media impacts society in the biggest way, right?
Yeah.
And especially through story.
Yeah.
And telling, you know, and it's that way people are able to, and the reason why making it visible is so you can see it. And that's why I made Shookman visible. Brilliant. You know, we just sit here talking about fear, the little voice.
Yeah.
It's just
the wind.
But now you can see it. There's a face of fear. This is the face of Shookman. You know, you can be like, right, okay, that's Shookman. This is who I'm talking to, right? This is the face of the little voice. It starts to remove it makes it less scary.
There you go.
It makes it, you know, I had this, I was in Mauritius recently, and my parents are originally from there, and I was there.
Brilliant.
And there were these two reptiles in just a quick thing, right? There's these two reptiles in this house that I was staying in. And initially when I first saw them, being a city boy, I was scared.
Oh, what's that?
But like day 2 or 3, I call one Rick, I call the other one Morty.
Really?
And then in the mornings, I'd wake up and be like, hey Rick, hey Morty.
Just chilling.
It made it fun, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Absolutely.
Like when you can see something and you name it and you can look at it, you can talk to it. It really draws the power out of it. And you take back the power. You take back control. Yeah,
I agree. Brother, this conversation has been so profound and so brilliant. You've made me open up, right? You said you're not a therapist. I don't know if I believe you with that, because
I'm not a trained therapist.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And that's the thing. It's like these conversations can be therapeutic.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, I've remembered it and it's taken me to places that I haven't thought about, but you just contextualize them. I want to say thank you so much for coming through, sharing with us, because I think this is a really, really important subject, and in the way that you're dealing with it, I think it's going to go towards helping a lot of people. Because as you said, if you name it, then you know it exists and you know you have to deal with it. But as we finish off, what do you want, or what would you like rather the listeners and the viewers to take away from this conversation? Also, because I know you've got the book there, what's also your call of action? So it's like a 2-in-1 question.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the main takeaway here is for all the listeners to appreciate that everyone has this. Everyone's got fear. Everyone. All right. And because the more that you can acknowledge that, the more you have compassion for yourself and others. And then you can appreciate that, you know, sometimes someone may not be talking because they're scared or they're nervous. Even that really, really hot, attractive person that you think is really hot and attractive. Maybe they seem all stush and quiet because they're nervous.
Exactly.
Just like you. And that's the thing. I think that's the main takeaway, is to appreciate that everyone's got this.
Absolutely.
And what I would absolutely love is for people to go to the website and download this book. And because that's why I made it. You know, I made this as a concise way for people to start to understand what I'm talking about. Everything's in there. Like I said, it's all for free. You just go to www.shookman, SHOOKMAN.com. Pop in your email and you can download this for free and you get it all.
Brilliant. And also your socials, where can they find you? I know you're on Instagram. Are there any other places online that you can be found?
Mainly Instagram's the one I mainly use. I do have Facebook as well. The links are actually on the back of the book as well. Instagram is at shook.man. So SHOOK.MAN. And that's the main one, really. I think. That's the main one.
Brilliant. Guys, another amazing conversation. Totally. You came, you've inspired, and I think your work is absolutely amazing, especially you using your gift to live in your purpose. Because your gift is the artistry, art that you do. That is a God-given gift, and then you are now living in your purpose with the work that you're doing. That's absolutely brilliant, bro. Speaking to you, seeing you, I could just tell like you've got this radiantness about yourself, because you're doing what you love to do and what you want to do. And I'm just so glad that I could be a part of it. I'm so glad that I get to share it with yourself as well. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolutely brilliant conversation. Ella, thank you as well.
And thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I've loved it.
Most welcome, bro. It's been brilliant. Guys, It's your boy, Isaac Speaks. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Looking forward to bringing you more content. Until next time, speak to you later.